If you're like me, somebody that's a very busy high income professional and you're tired of paying taxes, well, then this video is just for you. I've got my good friend here, Mr. Kriss Berg, AKA the car wash guy. That's right, car wash. So we are going to get into his story about all the different businesses that he's doing. It's crazy how busy this guy is. The car wash industry, it's a little bit different than you thought. And then what you can do to use that to save on tax. So Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you and I connected, I think last month on Twitter. You've got a pretty big following there. So for those that don't know much about you, tell us a little bit about, the different businesses, kind of how you got started with kind of leaving your W-2 passive income, and then we'll kind of lead up to what you're doing currently.
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur now for over 20 years. I was an engineer before. I was in heavy civil construction, and got to a point where I felt like I was surrounded by idiots. I was kind of young and cocky. I was about 27 and decided to leave my job. And I bought my first business in 2003. And that was a small construction company. So winding path through entrepreneurship. I had the construction company. I had a solar company. I did some real estate. And eventually I ended up with a bunch of online businesses. And my primary income now is through nutritional supplements that we sell online. And that's all science-backed. I spend a lot of time, it sounds like you have a lot of doctors as listeners. I spend a lot of time on PubMed and the National Institute of Health's website looking at random control trials to see what products can help our customers. So we have blood sugar control products, we have prostate swelling products, we have blood pressure products, things like that, all natural, all science-backed products that can help people naturally without prescriptions.
And what's the name of that company?
Name of that company is Legendary Ventures.
Okay.
And so we sell a lot through Facebook and YouTube and things like that. But like I said, it's all science-backed stuff. We don't sell any hocus pocus stuff. So my primary income through that's about a 16 to 18 million dollar a year company, and done that for about 12 years now. And forever I've been looking for kind of a side hustle, something to keep my interest up and to make a little bit of money on the side. I had some extra time and had some extra income, and I've always looked at something that would be fun and lucrative. And I tried a little bit of everything. I had rentals, I bought a triplex, I bought a duplex, and that was a nightmare, man. Just whenever you had a tenant turnover, it was just a nightmare getting them out, getting the place cleaned up, trying to find a new tenant that wasn't going to trash it like the old one did. It was a pain in the butt. So I really got turned off real estate, and I looked at crypto, and I looked at selling stuff on Amazon, and I just got turned off by all of it. It felt like all of that was just sort of like vapor, like it could just disappear overnight. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, if you were involved in Twitter at all, you would start hearing about self-storage. Everybody was buying self-storage places. And so I started looking at that, and I realized that the ship had already sailed. All of the killer returns were already gone. And so in the process of looking at self-storage places, I had talked to some real estate agents, and this one agent had sent me a car wash. This is about 2 years ago. And I didn't know anything about car washes. It didn't interest me at all. It wasn't on my radar at all. And I let it go at the time. 6 months later, I'm realized that self-storage places are not going to do me any good. And I went back to the car wash broker. I said, let's talk about this. Let's look at this thing. And it turns out that this particular car wash, it was selling for about $650K. And it was doing about 65 grand in profit every year.
What was the gross on that? Do you remember?
The gross revenue was 171.
This is just the kind you go in and you spray self-service
Yes.
sort of thing.
So it's your typical, they've got 3 self-serve bays and then
Okay.
1 automatic, which is called a in-bay automatic. And they're almost always touch-free these days, which is important. We'll get to that part later. So kind of a rinky-dink little car wash, kind of crappy, if we're being honest. But I started really looking at it, and this thing was a nice little cash cow. And I, at, when I started this journey, if you had told me that I was going to pay 10 times the profits on a business, I would have said, you're nuts. You know, I was used to paying 3 and 4 times on little businesses. We would buy a little supplement company and absorb it in ours. But then I realized with commercial real estate changes everything. When you have real estate attached to it, the multiples are very, very different. And so that 10 times earnings can be against you or it can work for you. That means every time you add $1 of profit to a building, you've upped the value of that property by 10 bucks. So that is a pretty attractive multiplier. And so I actually wrote a thread today on my Twitter account about how we doubled the value of that car wash.
Hmm.
We took the revenue from 171K to it will be just over 300K this year. And the profit is now going to be right at 150K. And so, I'm sorry, it's right at 125K, excuse me. So we doubled the profit, which means we doubled the value of that building in less than a year.
Wow.
So we got into the car washes and realized there was just the most basic blocking and tackling you could do on a business. We put it on Google Maps. We got somebody, we got a bunch of 5-star reviews on it. We increased the prices. There was already attendance in place. There was a manager in place, and there was another guy who served as an attendant. And we incentivized them to get 5-star reviews and to give the customers a really, really excellent experience. We basically told them, you guys are selling smiles here. You're not selling car washes, you're selling smiles. And so they give a little candy to the kids. And if they have a regular come in and they smile back at them, I told them, give them a free car wash. And so the reputation for this place skyrocketed. It's now has a fantastic reputation in the neighborhood. It's way more visible to the locals. And so we've doubled the value of it. So we did that last year. And then we bought another one with the profits from the first one. And seemed like a pretty good business. We're like, hey, this is pretty cool. Maybe we'll just keep buying car washes. So this was before I realized the tax implications. So this past December, probably like you and a lot of your listeners, you start thinking about taxes. Late December, you're thinking about, well, I better set some money aside for Uncle Sam. And I emailed my accountant on December 28th, and I said, what's the damage? What's it going to be? And I'm making quarterly payments like most businesses owners are, but there's always a little bit more to pay in. And she emailed me 2 hours later. I'll never forget it. She said, actually, you're going to get a refund. And I did like that hasn't happened in a dozen years for me. Called her up and I said, what are you talking about? So she told me about bonus depreciation. Now I had heard about it. I knew a little bit about it. I knew it was nice, but I had no idea that it was going to completely nuke my tax bill last year. So what happens is, and this is peculiar to car washes, okay? What it is, I'll try to put this all in layman's terms, is car washes are considered simply an active business that just happen to have real estate too, okay? Storage facilities and apartment buildings and triple net income retail shopping centers are considered real estate businesses and are considered passive by the IRS. Therefore, any income or any net losses you have in those real estate businesses can only be offset by passive gains, right? So you cannot take your W-2 income and reduce them with real estate businesses, okay? You can't do it with apartment buildings. You can't do it with self-storage. Car washes, on the other hand, and many other businesses, but car washes in particular are considered active businesses, and they happen to have a really high ratio of depreciable equipment, right? If you look at a lot that a car wash is on, the lot itself, meaning the dirt, is generally not worth that much. It's the improvements that are worth everything. The building, the equipment inside, the paving, all that stuff is where the real value is.
Now, do you have to get a cost segregation study?
My accountant did not do one. She was comfortable writing off about 40 to 50% of the purchase prices of these buildings. If you want to be on the safe side,
Yeah.
you could do a cost segregation study. And they would find some of these buildings that we're looking at, some of these car washes, the lot is worth almost nothing. A lot of them are like behind a gas station. And so in some of these cases, 70 or 80% of the building or of the cost of the car wash is in the building and the equipment, and is therefore depreciable with bonus depreciation. Okay. It's also unique with car washes that the building is depreciable under the bonus rules.
Oh, so it'll be
Most,
15 years or less?
yes.
Hmm.
So most of the time, it's the equipment inside, not the building itself. But for whatever reason, the car wash building itself is depreciable under the bonus program as well.
Interesting.
So that meant at the end of the day that I had a net, the car wash was profitable. So it had a net income for me and my business partner. We made money on it. But as far as the tax man is concerned, that car wash operation, the two operations, lost $650,000 last year. So that went straight into my personal taxes and completely nuked any tax liability I had.
So you were able to use that to offset your active income, but you had to use the rules of you, quote, materially participated. This wasn't like you're a small
Yes,
partner. Okay.
right. So the material participation is also a much easier hurdle.
So you don't have to be a real estate professional is what you're
You do
saying.
not have to be a real estate professional. The real estate professional rules are extremely difficult,
Right.
especially for a busy professional or W-2 owner, because you have to essentially convince them you're spending the majority of your time on real estate. And with material participation or active participation, it comes out to 500 hours a year, which is about 10 hours a week
For the car wash.
for the car washes.
Okay.
Yep. Which is a much easier hurdle. Now, wink, wink, that's definitely what I spend. Wink, wink. I spend about closer to 5 hours on average. But when we're hunting for a car wash, another one to buy, it gets up into about the 10 or 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So that's why I say this is the perfect thing for a W-2 earner or a high income professional. I talk to them all the time. It's sometimes they're in corporate America and they're in tech or something. They have $500, $600, $700, $800,000 income a year. They're paying 6-figure tax bill and they're sick of it. And they want something for a spouse or maybe even an older child to sort of manage and build something that you can pass on to your kids. Build something that's not only going to nuke your tax bill, but it's going to build some legacy wealth, right? So that's why I like this investment so much. And that's why I'm going, I won't say all in because I still have my other businesses, but I'm as far as a side hustle is, this is all I want right now. I want more car washes and I try to nuke my tax bill every year with a new car wash. And then the end game, because the bonus depreciation, you're kind of pushing the tax bill down the road. If you sell it, you have to recapture that. The plan then is to 1031 into other properties. So conceivably, you could, if you did this once a year for the right amount, for the right properties, you would never pay taxes on it. But that might be easier said than done.
So the So you could have like a, let's say like a full-time physician or dentist,
Hmm.
and if they're married, have the spouse kind of run it, and then that would that allow that couple, married couple, to offset the doctor income?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
That I believe so. And this is where you need to talk to an accountant. This is where it's complicated. But yes, when you file jointly, those losses and gains flow through to the same tax return. And you're in this scenario where the wife is running the car wash and the husband's a dentist, let's say, she would have this massive loss. He would have this big gain. They might X each other out. You might not owe any taxes. So that's a good it's a good thing to just confirm with your accountant. But it worked for me, and it's working for the people I'm consulting with like crazy.
That's awesome. So, now you had mentioned a little bit earlier that you haven't done this that long, like just a couple of years. So how many car washes now do
We
you
have two
have?
now, and we're about to pick up two more. Um, so we hope to do two a year for the
Mhm.
next 5 or 6 years, and just create a little regional chain of about somewhere 12 to 10 to 12 operations. And then the nice thing about that is that you can create a lot of systems, and there are car wash systems out there that will do this for you, where the overhead goes way down for each car wash for each one you add, because
Okay.
now you've got this operation. So the two we're about to buy has management and structure. They're big operations. They have their own management structure. The owner now, like, he's in Italy for a month, so he's not really involved in the day to day at all.
Yeah.
And so the bigger this thing gets, the more self perpetuating it is too. And so the nice thing about that is, if you can build this thing just in your free time, if you get into to the point where you have 10 or 12 car washes, well, the multiples change a lot. If you were to sell that entire operation, instead of you're paying 10 times earnings for each single one, when you sell the whole thing, you might be able to sell it for 13, 14 times earnings. So the multiples, then you're talking about really serious money. Then you're talking about legacy money for your family. And if you 1031 that whole thing into major real estate, I mean, you're talking about um, legacy money for your entire family, right?
So is sort of the end game as you're adding more parks, are you ever going to consider bringing in limited partners, passive investors, or what are your thoughts with that?
Yes, yeah, I think that'll happen eventually. Right now, we're hand to mouth so that we have enough cash to feed our own deals. But I think, somebody sent us a deal yesterday for 17 car washes in Southern Colorado. That's probably a deal that we couldn't quite do ourselves. So it's tempting to bring in limited partners. The problem for the limited partners is that for a limited partner, that is passive income
Correct.
and a passive loss for them. So they would not be able to write off W-2 income against that. So that would be more of a play for your passive income gains and losses. But it's very tempting, and the returns are phenomenal. So last year I put $220,000 into the car washes, and I had a $215,000 tax bill just get vaporized. So I already have my money back,
Yeah.
and I have the gains from the cash flow from the car washes. So the returns already are like 130%. It's wild
Wow.
what this rule does.
I guess the first thing that came into my mind, and I'm sure you've been asked this too, when you
Mm-hmm.
describe the type of car wash, because even in my hometown of 50, 55,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
all of these big express washes are, you know,
Yes.
popping up.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on that as far as competition? And what
Yep.
do you still see the little 3-car bay with automatic wash? You still see a need for that?
Yeah. Great question. Great question, Jeff. Because that's the first thing that comes up when I talk about these particular car washes. So first of all, the reason that you see all those big, they're called tunnel or express washes. right? You pull in and a conveyor belt pulls you through and spits you out the other side and your car's clean. The reason you see all those is because of the same thing. These private equity firms have realized that there's all these tax benefits to this car wash game, so they're dumping money into it. But what they probably realize, but what's not going to change is that there are a huge percentage of cars that cannot and can never go through those car washes. So you're in Louisiana, you are in lifted truck country, you are in ATV country, UTV country, boat country,
RVs.
RVs, people with trailers, contractors, and frankly, people with very high pride of ownership will never go through a tunnel wash, right? Like if you have a Ferrari or something, or a classic car, you're never going to take it through a tunnel wash because you don't want those brushes all over your car, right? They scratch paint. The tunnels are perfect for they're kind of for soccer moms or busy professionals that have a nice car, but not a really nice car. Like, I don't know if most people know this, but Teslas aren't supposed to go through that car because of the way they apply their paint and everything. Those brushes will take it right off. So there's a huge percentage of the population out there that will always need these types of washes. I didn't realize this till I bought a car wash, but my mom is actually touch-free, religious about her touch-free wash because she went through a brushed wash 20 years ago, got a couple scratches, and she'll never go back through because she's fanatical about how clean her car is. And so a touch-free is the only kind of wash, and there's a ton of people like that.
I guess the analogy is somebody sent me maybe about a year and a half ago an investment that they were looking at, and I'd gotten the same email. A good friend of mine that was doing an ATM investment. They're like, "Hey Jeff, what do you think about this?" Because it was like a 7-year hold period. You put your money in as a passive investor. You get a monthly return. And what do you think about cash? Nobody uses cash anymore, this and that. And I said, look, I have a Chase Bank, right? I have my office, then I have a blank lot, a bare lot, and then I have a Chase Bank and the ATM there. And throughout the day, there's usually people going through it. But on Fridays, there is a line of people all day long. And I'm thinking, I hardly ever use cash, but that's just not part of the population that I get. And just like what
No,
you're saying, there's
no,
just a segment of the population that are unbanked. They probably
that's
use
right.
quarters, right? Do they still use
Oh,
quarters?
yes. About 40% of our income is still cash, which means they're going up to the machine and shoving those 20s in there and getting a big group of quarters. And it's wild. It's a different demographic from the tunnels. It's
Yeah.
blue collar.
So what are some like quick value add plays like when you bought your first two that you could do? You don't put
Yeah.
a ton of money in to increase that
Yeah.
value.
So first and foremost, ironically, because we were just talking about cash, but we upgraded the card readers because the previous owner had kind of neglected this. They were about 4 or 5 years old. So people would run up and try to use a debit card or try to use a credit card, and it just wouldn't work. So they drive away. And the previous owners just kind of just neglected to do anything about it. So the first thing we did was spent about we could have just upgraded the card readers for about a couple $100 each, but we spent $7,000 to upgrade the entire point of sale system. Now we can have a cash audit because, of course, there's a lot of cash running through this place. And with this system now, we know exactly down to the quarter how much cash is coming through the door. So when the guys go deposit it, in fact, I just got through doing this. Took me like 15 minutes. I look at the computer system and tells me this is how much they should have deposited, and that's how much they did, and it was off by $4.25. I'm not going to worry about that. It's fine.
Yeah.
So that's a big value add. Putting credit card readers on the vacuums, because just like there's some people who are cash only, there's some people who are credit only. So that's an easy one. Having the attendants on site is a crazy value add because there's so many people a lot of our customers are elderly, and they get confused,
Yeah.
or they can't figure out the automatic washes. They can't figure out which way to swipe their credit card. That's kind of a funny way. And plus our attendants are asking for 5-star reviews. And so those 5-star reviews really add up. That's one of the primary movers on the car wash that we doubled the business on.
So now that you're a car wash owner, I've always wanted to ask this. Being from Louisiana,
Mhm.
typically what we do is, we go through hunting season, which around here is October to, depending on where your region is, December, maybe January.
Yep.
Well, most of us will just accumulate the mud on our trucks, and then we'll take it to one of your car washes and spray off everything at the end of the year. And there's just
Yep.
these huge, I have to wear like my rubber boots because
Yeah.
I'm muddy. So, I know when I leave, I'm kind of, I'll kind of get it down the drain. So what happens with all that mud and dirt? And there's got to be
Oh
some
yeah.
sort of way to dispose of it,
So
right?
that's what you just said. That's the main job of the attendant, is to clean that out. Because if your wife pulled up to the self-serve bay and saw all that mud in there, she'd drive away, right?
Right.
She's not going to get her shoes muddy. So
Right.
that's one of the main things our attendants do. But so what happens, there's a pit down there, and basically the mud goes in, collects at the bottom, and the water goes over the top and into the sewage. It goes with the sewage treatment plant, just like all of our sewage does.
Hmm.
And then that mud, you can either suck it out or you can dig it out, and then it's generally dried, and then it just goes into a landfill. It can't be actually. There's a couple people around town that own car washes. They put it on their land because they swear it grows great tomatoes. For me, I'm not going to do that, but for the most part, the proper way is to put it in a landfill. So it's got a
Okay.
little bit of metal in it because of the brake dust and stuff.
Now I know that you said you've got two car washes. You're getting ready to add a couple more, but you already
Yes.
have a course on this. So tell me a little bit
Yes.
about that and how, if people are interested, how can they get that?
Yes. Yeah. So people are wondering, like, holy cow, you've only been doing this a year and a half. You already have a course. It caught fire on Twitter when I started talking about this stuff, and everybody's asking question after question after question. And I realized that if I just put it all into one place, that it would just be easier for everybody. So
Mhm.
at taxfreecashcow.com, I have a video walking you through the what I do and how we run these car washes, and then you can buy the course if you like. And it'll take you through everything. I've got how to find them, where to find them, how to find on-market deals, how to find off-market deals, how to buy your first car wash, complete with contracts, financing agreements, all this stuff, asset purchase agreements, and then all the systems we have in place to run the car wash too. And like I said, I have this down to about 5 hours a week. And honestly, if I wasn't trying to build a car wash empire, it might not even be that. So I have breakfast with my car wash guys every other Friday morning. Um, and they text me, but they handle all the ordering of the soap and the reloading of the soap. We're actually upgrading the second car wash we bought in November. We're upgrading the automatics there. I check in on that process about 1 hour a week. So it can be, nothing is passive, truly passive. Like, I mean, maybe buying stocks and collecting dividends is, but this is semi-passive as you can get. And the fact that you can just say goodbye to the tax bill is extremely attractive, obviously.
Absolutely. All right. So if you guys are interested, go to taxfreecashcow.com. I'll leave the link below the video, and then you go by the car wash guy on Twitter, and you have your picture with the big yellow background. So you
Big
really
yellow background. Just look for car wash guy with the big yellow background. Connect with me on there. And you can also email me, Kriss, KRISS, at stopwashgo, which is the name of our car washes, stopwashgo.com.
stopwashgo.com, KRISS at stopwashgo.com.
You
Excellent.
got
So
it.
we'll get all that put below the video. Kriss, again, pleasure. Glad that you're doing some really cool stuff, but what's really important that I really like about what you're doing is you're not hoarding it. I mean, you're sharing it with other people. I mean, you didn't wait
Yes.
10, 15 years to go, oh yeah, back 10, 15 years ago, this is what I started doing. You're doing it now. It's fresh on your mind. So it's really cool
Yeah.
that and I wish everybody would start to kind of implement that mindset that when you're
Yeah.
doing something, especially in our profession, we go through all this school and it's almost like, well, if we want to be like a specialist, whatever, we have to be the best, and it's so competitive. So we want to
Right.
hoard,
Yeah.
anything that we get because we don't want anybody else to get it. So it's a lot of
Right.
times, it's hard to break out of that mindset. So I'm really glad that you're doing that, and I appreciate everything you're doing and
That's awesome.
sharing on Twitter as well.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that.